Hello everyone and welcome to today's random review. To those of you who don't know, I'm your host Daniel. This is the Random Ramblings channel. A few months ago when I started this channel in November of 2022, I said this channel would be about me reviewing TV shows, possibly books, TV series, arc within an arc, examining storylines developed between two characters as far as their relationships go within a central story arc or story, and just anything random that pops into my head. Well, today I thought I would focus on the latter, as in the last option, as I have just tried to watch an episode of Laguna Beach, episode 1 of season 1 to be precise, in order for me to review it for you people, and the reception was very bad in where I am at the moment, so I'm unable to watch the episode, and that's after relocating 3 times. So for today's review, I would like to talk about how growing up in the 2000s was much better than growing up in the 2020s or 2010s or being a millennial. That is to say, why I would much rather have grown up in my generation than today's generation, and I'll explain why. And before you guys rip me to shreds in the comment section, I'm in no way stating that I'm better than millennials, because no one generation is better than the one who came before it or the one that comes after it. We all evolve, things go in and out of fashion, things become popular again that were not popular 30 years ago, and vice versa. If you grew up in the 90s like me, and you really hit your stride in the 2000s, things like VHS tapes were still popular, although they were slowly going out of fashion. DVDs were on the rise, having had their major peak in having first been introduced in the late 1990s and hitting their strides in the 2000s. If you're a kid like me growing up in the early to mid 2000s, you would have watched shows like The Fairly Odd Parents, Jimmy Neutron, Ed, Ed and Eddie, Dexter's Laboratory, and Courage the Cowardly Dog. Coincidentally, all my favorite shows growing up were on Cartoon Network, and all of those shows I hope to review at some point in the future for you guys. Also, I was one of those kids that loved old school stuff. For instance, I had an old tape recorder that I used to record stuff on, similar to what I do now, except I used to record things like stories, listen to audiobooks on cassette, and things of that nature. For those of you who don't know, a tape recorder is essentially a mini VHS tape that you can record things on, and it has film. Essentially a mini VHS tape, and for those of you unfamiliar, ask your parents, they'll know what I'm talking about. Also, DVDs and CDs were popular. Those things with the massive discs that you could play anytime, anywhere. Discmans were also popular, although by the early 2000s they were starting to be phased out in lieu of MP3 players and iPods. This is before everything became attached to your mobile phone, of course. I was one of those old school kids who still listened to CDs on a Discman or a Walkman. Also, TV was still popular then, as it is now. That's one of the few things that hasn't changed, although with one very important exception and distinction. Back then, you had to wait for the shows you actually wanted to watch, with the exception of The Simpsons, which for me was on at 6 o'clock every evening on Channel 10 here in Australia. As opposed to now, you can watch basically any show and every show you can think of, provided you have a streaming service platform such as Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, or Netflix, or even Binge or Stan here in Australia. The downside with the binging generation, however, is you get whatever you want, whenever you want it, straight away. There's no anticipation. There's no anxiously waiting for that next episode, waiting to see if two people fall in love, waiting to see if the bad guy gets caught. You have to wait a week. As frustrating as that may be, it builds anticipation for the next episode. You don't just get to binge everything in one night. In many ways, anticipation and the frustration you felt as a kid growing up was the very thing that got you hooked the next week. There's none of that now. Everything gets handed to you straight away. You can watch an entire season of a series in one night. You can watch an entire series of something in 1 week, if you're so inclined. Our need for television is still there. Our need for entertainment is still there, but the anticipation's gone. There's no waiting. There's no patience required on our part, on the viewer's part. Everything is just on demand. What we want, when we want it now. UberEATS was not a thing. Home delivery from a pizza place like Pizza Hut or Domino's, that was something to look forward to. There wasn't all these choices like Macca's, Hungry Jack's, Burger King, Pizza Hut. None of these alternative delivery apps existed. For me, having a carpet picnic, doing Macca's drive-thru and having takeaway with my family when I was 9 years old, 10 years old, on a Wednesday night was something special, something to look forward to. The one night of the week where I could pick anything I wanted. Back in the days when $50 lasted 2 hours at the bowling alley for me to buy a hot dog with cheese, chips with extra salt, and wasting countless dollars on Time Crisis and air hockey at the bowling alley. This is before I grew up and actually learned how to throw a ball down a bowling alley, and going to the bowling alley to bowl rather than play video games took precedence. Although, to be fair, I still love air hockey now, and it's so sad they got rid of Time Crisis. But what do you guys think? Would you guys like to have grown up in the 90s, 2000s? Do you agree with me, those of you who grew up in my generation? Gen Z, I think it's called. I have no idea. Millennials are taking over. And if it's not them, it's the blasted baby boomers like Trump, Biden, all these old guys who have just lost touch with reality. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make this political. What a coincidence. Have I missed the mark? Do you agree with me? What do you think? Is it better to live in today's generation where you get whatever you want when you want it? Is it more convenient? Do you find it more convenient? Would you have gone insane if you had to wait a week to watch a TV show? Please let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe for more content like this. Check out the playlists of other videos I've uploaded. Until then, as always, be cool, stay cool. Bye for now.